Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. This is your boy the Bulldog coming at you. Mind if you like this type of stuff, please smash that like button, get those horns up, share my video if you like, subscribe. Alright, I've been wanting to do a discography of this band for a little bit now. They're one of my favorite bands from the 80s, 90s, and even today. Um, the band, a lot of you guys might remember this band when I say it. The band called W.A.S.P. Guys have been around since '82, I think it was. Um, Extensive catalog. I think they have like 16 albums out now, 17 roughly. I got most of them. I the only thing I'm missing two albums by them. I think I'm missing Babylon and Unholy Terror. I do have them on my iTunes. Those two albums. I burned them a while ago to a couple blanks. Um, those two albums weren't bad, especially Babylon. Um, I just haven't had a chance, to fill in gaps yet. Um, but Wasp has always been one of those bands that I've always liked. I first got into them when I first heard um, BAD, School Days, and their infamous classic "I Want to Be Somebody" off their first record, Wasp, that came out in '84. Um, like most bands um, from that era, um, they were. I wouldn't put Wasp in the whole hair metal category because I don't think they were ever hair metal. You know, and a lot of people say, "Oh, they came out with their hair puffed up in the first few." You know, I always thought of them as just like a sleaze metal type band, um, almost like a shock rock type, you know, four piece. Um, they 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 were one of those bands that the PMRC uh, took notice of. For those you don't remember, back in the '80s, PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, um, tried to censor albums, musicians, songs for that matter. You might remember Dee Schneider going to Capitol Hill, fighting with him, Rob Halford, and also Blackie Lawless from W.A.S.P, the lead singer, who I have always have had the utmost respect for. Um, I think he's one of the most uh, theatrical frontmen up there. Uh, he has a distinct voice. When you hear it, you know it's him. Um, I've always liked Blackie. Um, interesting, interesting story. Um, '97, I think it was. They were on tour. They were doing the KFD album. Um, as you don't know, if you don't know what that stands for, Kill Fuck Die. Um, One of their darker, angrier albums. I'll get to that album in a minute or two. Um, they were playing in Connecticut at a place called Tuxedo Junction. Well, they were opening for Motorhead, who was on tour for the Overnight Sensation record, which, again, I love Motorhead. It's one of my favorite bands. And very good album by them. Very, very good. I like that album by Motorhead. Which, incidentally, I will be doing a full discography of Motorhead. My entire thing of that, I got them. I got about 30 of them. So that's coming up in the next few streams also. I know I'm working on. I know I keep going back and forth with things, but there's certain things that I'm working on that um, it's a lot more in depth with those certain ones. Um, but yeah, that's coming up too. We're getting back to what I was saying. Um, I remember going to see that show. I was stoked for it, because I seen Wasp before. At that time, I think it was like the second or third time that I was gonna see him. Um, Chris Holmes was still in the band at this time. Remember, he was going back and forth with his issues. I'll get into that too. Um, we're outside. If anybody's been to Tuxedo Junction in Connecticut, I forget what it's called now. I haven't been there in years. I haven't lived in Connecticut in quite some time. Um, we're standing outside, and you had W.A.S.P tour bus, Motorhead's tour bus. Door swings open from the tour bus, and here comes this big 6'2", 6'4" looking freak, Chris Holmes. Hey, you some bitch mother! You guys ready to rock tonight? Yelling, and you know, the place was starting. The line was starting to form. We're all assuming, yeah, you know. Um, and he started saying, that famous song, "Animal." I'll get into that too. But the um, the staff, you wouldn't. They didn't allow you in, the venue until maybe 45 minutes, before it started. So a bunch of us were hanging out in front. We're getting ready to go get something to eat at the bar across the street there, and little bodegas and little shops. One of the guys, staff comes out, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, can if we leave, we got to get back in line because I think I had VIP or something. I don't remember why I asked him. I said I just got to go to the bathroom or something. He's like, hold on. He goes, we got a surprise for you. So I was like, we're looking around like, what are you guys talking about? Well, he goes, there's a couple of people sitting at the bar right now behind me that said, let them in. The fans of ours, let them in. We're looking around and they blacked out the windows, so you really couldn't see in. They did that a lot when there's artists, bands playing there, because a lot of bands like to hang out at the bar there. So they let us in, and I was like one of the first ones in. A couple ex friends of mine went at the time that I went with. Walk in, sitting at the bar. Blackie Lawless, right next to him is Lemmy. Now, no secret, I love Lemmy, I love Motorhead, I miss him. Sitting at the bar. And between them was a big old bottle of Jack. We come in, and Blackie Lawless turns around. As Lemmy looks over his shoulder. Now, you guys remember that look that Lemmy had, that looked like, um, Blackie Lawless goes, look at this dude walking in. Big old 6'2" something guy, huh? I was like, look at him. He goes, no, you. Lemmy starts laughing. I was like, holy shit. I shook Lemmy's hand. First time I met him. Shook Blackie's hand. First time I ever met him. I'm not going to lie. I was like a little fanboy. I was like 21, I think. And I told Lemmy straight up how much he's been, value my life with his music. Been a fan since day one. Told Blackie the same thing. A lot of their music got me through a lot of, hard times, especially back in high school, And they just started bullshit with us. And people were coming in, following around them. And the staff said, okay, guys, just, hang out. You go by the stage. Because when you walked in, you had the bar that was on like this side as you walked in. Then on this side, if anybody's ever been there, knows they have some seating for booths, to eat or whatever. So we got in there and we're gonna get something to eat. So we sat down and literally we were sitting right across from them, and they were sitting there bullshit with everybody for about, I think I got an hour at least. Chris Holmes comes up, sits down, shakes people's hands. I met him. Again, he was cocked, to say the least. He grabs a bottle of I think it was Majorska vodka, they give him a couple shot glasses. He goes, no, no, no. Pops it. Just inhaling it. And a few of us said, well, I guess the decline of Western civilization was accurate. Oh boy, that people started laughing. He was like, yeah, it was. You remember that documentary that came back out then? Decline of Western civilization. He was in it. Remember, he was the one sitting in his mother's pool, getting shit faced, getting drunk, gallons and gallons of Majorska. I'll get to that later on about him. But yeah, we get some food. And all of a sudden, we get shots in front of us. We're like, we don't order no shots, you know. I was getting my usual Captains and Coke. Because at the time, you know, it was not a drink called a Lemmy. Again, I miss you. Until recently, you know. And his drink, as he knows, is Jack. You know, Jack and Coke. You know. So, they get, I think it was like 4, maybe 5 of us. They each shot. Lemmy bought shots for everybody else in that part of the venue. The one time at the stage didn't know about it. 2 shots of Jack, pounded. Meanwhile, Lemmy has his bottle of Jack. He had one that was half full still between him and Blackie. We ordered food or whatever, got our drinks. Lemmy bought, like I said, the drinks. I don't remember if he paid for the food or not. I don't remember. But I know the drinks were on him. Shook our hands, said, "Hope you enjoy the show. Be safe." You know, I said to him, I stood up, shook his hand. I had pictures of me with Blackie Lawless, Chris Holmes, and Lemmy. I was standing in the middle of them. Over time, I lost pictures, moves, issues with people, stealing stuff, throwing stuff away. Because back then we didn't have, you know, cell phones. You know, it was 96, 97. You know, cell phones weren't really, unless you had a big old fancy car. But yeah, I missed those pictures. I don't know whatever happened to them. Just that day always stuck with me. That's why when I ever, you know, listen to Motorhead or the W.A.S.P, even, you know, talking about it now is bringing back memories of it. But it was a great time. As far as I remember, it was a great show. And yes, W.A.S.P headlined that night. Motorhead opened for them that night. It was a great show. Again, Overnight Sensation by Motorhead is one of the best. I think one of their best albums in their whole catalog. And W.A.S.P was doing the KFD album. That for that album, it was that tour. But yeah, it was just memories like that. You know, like brought this all back. But getting back to W.A.S.P. By even before their debut album came out, they came out with Live in the Raw, right here, original. The PMRC had a filthy 15 list of artists, of songs. I'm still learning how to put the graphics up for the video, so bear with me. Why? Like I said, I'm still learning how to do a few things with this. They came out with the filthy 15. If you guys remember, the typical movement. They were trying to get, you know, bands of all genres, rap, metal, whatever have you, censored. When they found that they couldn't really do it, Freedom of Speech Act, Artistic Act, you know, things like that, they decided to put a little sticker on albums that said parental advisory, explicit content, explicit lyrics, explicit artwork, that whole 9 yards. Again, I gotta thank them. I gotta thank Tipper, and I gotta thank uh, the PMRC. Again, I said in the past on past streams, I gotta thank them for making not only mine, but every kid in the metal back then, making their childhood great. Because you made us go buy the albums with that little sticker on it. If they thought that, you know, we were gonna go buy the albums that had that little edit, that wasn't gonna happen. I'm sorry, but my opinion, by putting the sticker on there, they pulled everybody towards those. And back then, music started skyrocketing because of that label. So thank you. Still, PMRC, thank you. Anyways, I have it on my phone, that list. Like I said, I'm still working on how to do the graphics to put them up. But the Filthy 15 is consisted of bands and songs that they consider to be filthy, bad, things like that, unsuitable for children. They did a ranking of them. X was for profane or sexually explicit. 0 was for occult. DA was drugs or alcohol. V was for violent. Alright. They had on this list Judas Priest, Eating Me Alive. They gave it a X rating. I still laugh at this when I see it. Next one was Motley Crue, Bastard. They give it a V for violence. Next one was, here's what made me laugh. I'm telling you, there's ones on this list that today made me laugh. They had Prince. Prince of all people. Darling Nikki. X. Profane or sexually explicit. Prince? Come on. Next one was Sheena Easton, who was hot back in the day. You guys remember Sheena E was hot. Banging bitch. Hot. They had her song Sugar Walls, X-rated. What? I didn't realize that things were that bad with music back then. Maybe, I didn't pay attention to it. I had my sister. I'm sure she could vouch for some shit. I don't know. Next one was W.A.S.P. Animal. Fuck like a beast. Oops. Sorry. My language, I'm bad. That one was X-rated. You remember that song, Animal, F like a beast. That was they I might have it in front of me. That's the original W.A.S.P. Animal, F like a beast. Remember he had the cock piece with the saw on it. That was made famous by Blackie Lawless. This came out, this dropped, and this is one of the ones that got them on that list. This song was almost banned because of that. But that's the original EP of that. You had Merciful Fate, Into the Coven, Occult. I mean, yeah, you could say that about, Merciful Fate and King Diamond at that time. They would just start off with Merciful Fate, and those lyrics in there scared people. They had a band called Vanity. I don't remember the name of that band. I don't remember what that group or whatever they were. Strap on Robbie Baby, X-rated. I have no clue. I gotta look that one up. I even think about it. I gotta look that up later on to see who the hell it was. They also had Def Leppard, High and Dry, labeled DA, drugs or alcohol. I guess see Def Leppard a little bit. But that song? Well, I remember that song was something different, but according to them, it's a filthy, that filthy song. Next one was Twisted Sister. Here's one that made me laugh. Twisted Sister, We're Not Gonna Take It. Remember, D. Schneider went up there and told him, and I mean, shocked everybody in the world. I think, especially his fans, us, that whole male community. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. And everybody's like, what? You know? I remember when that popped off back in, I mean, 87 he was? 85. When I had nothing hall. He don't. You know? They got others on here. Madonna, Dress You Up, X-Rated, Cyndi Lauper, She Bop, X-Rated. AC/DC, Let me put my love into you, X-Rated. It's like, okay. Black Sabbath, Trashed, for Drugs and Alcohol. You guys know that song. The Tequila, you know. Mary Jane Girls, I never heard of them. My House, X-Rated. And then the last one, the classic, Venom, for the song Possessed in the album Possessed. Occult, they labeled that one as. So yeah, W.A.S.P, fit right in with all that going on back then. They wrote a song, like I said, off the Live in the Raw EP, live EP, called Harder, Faster, directed right at PMRC. Blackie Lawless is one of them that never strayed away from a fight, that never backed down from a fight. He he would challenge him, and he was one of those ones about the freedom of speech, expression, artistic expression, So yeah, he was fine. I always said, if there was two people I would vote for president for, and I don't vote for president, I don't care for him, it would be Lemmy and Blackie Lawless. There's still hope with Blackie. But W.A.S.P always challenged people with a lot of different things, and like I said, hearing that first record, W.A.S.P, the self-titled one right here, hearing School Days back then, I think I was like, God, probably about 8 years old, 9 years old when this record dropped. School Days, B.A.D., the iconic I Want to Be Somebody. I mean, this record dropped, I think this record was ahead of its time too. I mean, you had everything on here. You had the Flame, the iconic Love Machine, Hellion, The Torture Never Stops, Tormentor. It's just a great album, without a doubt. A lot of bands have these albums that come out, their first album, and they slowly start to tank. There was a time with W.A.S.P, I'll get to it in a little bit, where they were at that point of their career. I think, a couple of albums didn't really, come off like they thought, and a couple of them, Black even said it was not that great of an album. It really wasn't. But if you don't remember, W.A.S.P, people always ask them, why did you put the, it's spelled what, it's spread out, W, the dot, A, dot, S, like that. They said, we don't want to be confused with a B. That's why they made the W.A.S.P letters big, and they would even have a dot or they had a screw, for the dot. That's why if you see in their albums, the W.A.S.P letters, stick out more than anything. And there's a lot of times there was like screws in between the letters, so it stuck out, so people knew they were not a B or a fly or whatever. They were a band. They were They were originally going to be called Winged Assassins before W.A.S.P came about. And I think a lot of people were saying that the band's sister, but I remember a couple of members being in bands named Sister later on. But yeah, they were going to be called Winged Assassins before they changed the name to W.A.S.P, which I think W.A.S.P, in my opinion, sounds better as a band name. But maybe I'm just saying it because I'm so used to hearing that name W.A.S.P. You know, Winged Assassin does make a good band name, but I think W.A.S.P, holds more. And yes, for a lot of people that don't know, the acronym for W.A.S.P, we are sexual perverts. That's what it's been called since I can remember. So yeah, they were just one of those bands. W.A.S.P, they're still going. 16, 17 albums into it now, and they're still going. Incidentally, they just played over in Norway at a festival. I had it right down because I saw it on here. They were at some festival over there. I guess like prior, last year or something, they were playing over in Berlin, and Blackie was having neck and back pain. So he had to get a doctor like fast. He went to a doctor. The doctor advised him, "You can't go on tour no more. You can't." And Blackie was like, "What are you talking about? You crazy? I gotta go." Turns out he had, I think he said 2 or 3 broken discs in his back, and something else was going on. Basically, his back was broke. So they told him you can't. Blackie being Blackie said, "You're crazy. I'm not gonna back out of my tour. I've been playing for my fans for decades. I'm not gonna stop now. You know." And that's one thing with Blackie I could very much say is true with him. He loves his fans. You know. Anybody that has seen W.A.S.P, Blackie is on stage moving around, dancing around, even with the mic stand he has. So yeah, and coming from somebody that has back issues, I had double back surgery in 2010. I got some hardware in my back, along with 4 fake discs, 4 fake vertebrae. So I know the type of pain. Especially I couldn't fathom him being a musician and doing it. No, I still deal with the back pain now. And this is 14 years later. But I can't even picture being a musician and doing what he does, jumping around stage and everything. You know. So he said no. I don't know what exactly they're doing for him, but he just played over recently in Norway at a festival, and it's on YouTube actually. That's where I first heard about it. I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" And that's what made me want to do the W.A.S.P, discography and everything. I was watching them, and they still sound great. Whatever people say to you, or what you hear about Blackie has lost it, W.A.S.P has lost it. No, go check out the video that was just put up last month on here. They're in Oslo, Norway, at a festival, and they sound insanely good, and I mean great. They got him sitting in a chair on the stage playing, and you could tell he wants to get up and move. You could tell, it's gnawing at him, eating on him. He can't get up. He can get up, but he's real slow. There's bits and pieces of it where he gets up to make hand signals, to the band to do different, stoppages or breakdowns or whatever, which is normal. But yeah, he's still doing it. He's 17 years into this, or I'm sorry, 17 albums into it, And what, 82 to now is what, 44 years now? 43? Right? Something like that. So, you know, at, I I salute him, you know. Hats off to him. He's still, the W.A.S.P is still going, that metal flag. Putting out, you know, quality stuff still. Um, they haven't put out a real studio album. They did put out 2018 the Re-Idolized album of my favorite album by them, The Idol, the Crimson Idol. This this is the reissue of it. This is the 2018 reissue. I got the one from '92 right here. This is a double disc and DVD of it, where he explains about uh, the entire album, all the songs, the meaning behind it, Chainsaw Charlie, the whole 9 yards. Jonathan, uh, absolutely amazing. If you guys don't have this, pick this up. It's well worth it. Like I said, double album plus DVD, and it gives the whole entire story of the Crimson Idol, the whole, about the characters, you know, throughout the songs and everything. It's well worth it. And also, it's absolutely one of my favorite, if not my favorite, um, story albums, concept albums. It's definitely, like I said, one of my favorite, if not my favorite. Um, but yeah, they, getting back to the beginning, they went through a lot of things, especially with Chris Holmes. Um, I mentioned about that decline of Western civilization, decline of Western civilization part when he's sitting, when he's on in the pool, floating around, he's going through bottles and bottles of vodka. Chris had a serious issue. Chris left. Chris was in the band from '83 to '91, '90ish, um, and then he left. They were having issues. He did come back in '96 for one track. He was there for like, not '96. Actually, he came back. He was in '96 to '01. He was on the KFD album. Um, but he was just having issues. Again, him and Blackie were infighting a lot. Um, Chris, I think Chris had the opportunity to be an extremely good guitarist. I think he could have been. Um, I think he did. I think he, for the albums that he was with W.A.S.P, I think he was pretty good with them. Um, it's sad what's going on with him. Um, he was doing a side project with his Mean Man group again in 2021 or 2022. He got diagnosed with throat and mouth cancer. I think it was throat and mouth. Might have been throat and lung cancer, I believe it was, or something like that. I feel bad for him. He can't do what he used to do. Nowhere near it. I know him and Blackie had their differences. Chris made it known on one of his solo projects where he was, you know, after he left the first time, it started, and when he came back and he left again in '01, you know, he started bad mouthing Blackie, he started bad mouthing the band, label, you know, the whole nine. And for a minute, it looked like maybe they would get back together, settle their differences. That never happened. I think Chris felt disrespected. Um, Chris let his ego take over, I think. Um, I know Chris badmouthed him a lot in interviews, live live interviews also, not only in magazines, but he badmouthed them. I mean, he badmouthed Blackie big time. But yeah, it's a shame. I wish Chris all the best. You know, hopefully you recover from it. But cancer's a bitch. You know, you know. I said it before. Cancer sucks. You know, I said last stream. I'm sure. You know, we all know somebody close to us that has had it. I lost my father in '06 from it. Lost my brother-in-law in '13 from it. You know, so yeah, cancer. Cancer sucks. Bottom line, you know. I think a lot of times when you hear that word cancer, it puts a lot of shit that happened in the rear view. You know, I'm sure Blackie has reached out to him. I'm almost positive he has. You know, Blackie's not a cold SOB like a lot of people think he is. You know, I mean, hell, they were in the band for how many years together, total. You know, you figure '83 to '90, what's that, 7, and then another 5, what's that, 12 years total. You know, and hell, even before that, you know, so you figure probably 15 years total. You know, that they'd been, you know, together in a band. It sucks. It really does. You know, W.A.S.P was one of those bands that could have just, you know, taken off. Excuse me. But hold on, let me get a quick swig. Excuse me. Next album I want to talk about is, I think one of my favorite by them. The first album is like one of my top. The Last Command. A lot of people, they say that this album, they went more, you know, mainstream sounding with this album. I like this record. It's really not one, you know, bad track that jumps out on this record. Ball Crusher, Wild Child, you know, great song. My favorite, Fistful of Diamonds. I love that song, just the groove of it. Jack Action, Blind in Texas, the infamous Blind in Texas song. That's like one of their iconic songs, you know, that's played all the time. Every chance they get, they'll play that. Cries in the Night. I love that song. It's a strong power ballad, and that's something W.A.S.P is famous for, those power ballads. They've done a number of those strong power ballads over their career. Last Command, Sex Drive. that's one of those songs. Widowmaker. You know, a lot of people said, you know, they didn't. This album, a lot of people said they went soft on it because they started to hit that little mainstream stretch. Even back in '85 when it came out, you know, they didn't. I think W.A.S.P didn't care too much about staying under or being over in the mainstream. You know, I mean, come on, for them to rattle Tipper Gore and PMRC with, you know, certain songs back when they first, you know, came out, '82, '83. You know, they were doing something right. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, it's really not a bad album. Like I said, a few of my favorites off this one, definitely Cries in the Night. I love that song. It shows Blackie's vocal range. You know, that he always hits. I still say Blackie has one of the most anonymous voices in metal. You know, you hear his voice, you know who it is. Blind in Texas, like I said, that track will forever be like their top hit per se. Wild Child, the same thing. Ball Crusher, you know, just in my opinion, not a bad record by them, by any stretch. Like I said, it started to put them, that started getting them noticed more, you know, with this record. Um, whereas their debut was just that, not many people heard of them other than hearing Animal, you know, um, and it just this album started to put them further up. Next one that I think really got them even more, put out there and noticed is Inside Electric Circus album. Pretty good album. This is when they started to like lose the makeup, still had the poofy hair, so people still try to keep them in that hair metal category. Like I said, I never put them in that category. I never will. Sleaze metal, definitely. Heavy metal, without a doubt. Hair metal, no. Sleaze metal, yeah. Like I said, no question about that. And this one too, it really didn't have any, bad tracks on it. Inside Electric Circus, Shoot from the Hip, I'm Alive, 9-5 Nasty, even those, the sex lines, Restless Gypsy, the cover, I Don't Need No Doctor, by Ray Charles, they covered that song. King of Sodom and Gomorrah, so yeah, this wasn't a jump out album back then by any stretch. I mean, it came out in '86, I believe. It was '86. Yeah, it wasn't a jump out album by any meaning of it. I don't even think this peaked high on the top 200 back then, or what the hell it was back then. A lot of people didn't like this album too much, but it's like there's certain songs on this album that are fairly good. It's not a great album, but it's fairly good, especially for that time in metal. You know, it was one of those albums in '86. Think about it. '86, you had a ton of bands that were releasing some great albums in '86. So you had the great albums, Slayer, of course, Testament, the Creator, Gangrene, I believe too, and a host of others. I'm trying to remember '86 now. Maiden, Priest, but you had bands like W.A.S.P, just third album, I believe it was. Yeah, third album. Just trucking along. Just trying to make a name for themselves. Fighting with the people. The PMRC, things like that. Things along that line. Hold on, guys. I gotta fix my mic cord. Test. There we go. I have no clue what that was about. But yeah, they were just trucking along, and I think that's what a lot of the problems and issues started to come in the band. Like a lot of bands went through back then, especially in the '80s. Everybody was fighting for that supremacy. Everybody wanted to be on top. They want to be the next big thing. And back then you had the likes of Bon Jovi blowing up MTV. Scorpions for that matter. Um, I love Scorpions, so not bad against them. Um, you had a lot of poppy hair metal, you know, knocking on the door, coming in. Like I said, thrash metal was still, and metal in general was still there, just knocking until '86. When I think '86, they kicked the door down and said, "Okay, we're here. Hair metal, get the hell out of here." And you had the crossover coming in, so hardcore. So yeah, I think W.A.S.P is just starting to paint their way. You know, um, and then '89, one of my favorite favorite records by them, and this album is makes everybody's list that I talk to. Headless Children, amazing album, absolutely amazing, amazing record. Uh, I think it's the one of the records that, top to bottom, there wasn't a skip track on this record. Uh, the Real Me, I absolutely love. The title track, Hellish Children, Thunderhead, Mean Man. Uh, Incidentally, The Real Me was a cover by The Who, um, that they do continuously. Neutron Bomber, uh, Forever Free, Man Eater. You know, it's just a number of great tracks on this album. Um, yeah, this is the one that really, really, I think, solidified them as a force to be in metal. Um, Especially going forward, the '90s coming up. Um, Chris Holmes was still in this band at this time. Um, but then, they just started going through, things with, inside the band. Um, a lot of, infighting. Um, that's when Chris started pounding back the alcohol more. That's when he became a full, addict, in my opinion, with it. All of them. Blackie had his demons, you know, but still was a force live, um, big time. Especially then, they were doing festivals over in um, over in Europe. They were on festival, hell, in Russia, I believe. Um, they did a couple of things over there. I know they were on a couple of festivals in Stockholm, um, at that time, and I think there was a couple of festivals here that they did that went over Europe. But yeah, W.A.S.P has always been big over there. I mean, they were big here, but they even got bigger when they hit Europe. When a lot of these hair metal bands, again, I'll never classify them hair metal because they're not. They've been sleaze metal and just a straight up heavy metal band. But a lot of these bands, you know, W.A.S.P, Motley Crue, Rat, Quiet Riot, um, bands along that line, Faster Pussycat for that matter, you know, started servicing. They were huge over in Europe. It was sort of funny because you had like a swap. You had the hair metal mainstream bands getting big over there, and over here you had metal. You know, back then, the underground, Slayer, Testament, Creator, Exodus, Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Creator, Maiden, along that line, getting big over here and taking over. So, but W.A.S.P, like I said, W.A.S.P stayed even. I think they stayed even. Again, I think it's one of their best records, that they put out. Um, yes, again, you know me. When I'm going to do something, I write things down just so because I like to rehearse. I know it sounds weird, but I like to rehearse what I'm going to say, and I'll write it down. I got scribbled on like 2 pages of my notebook. Yes, this is going back to even when I was in high school, when I was DJing at radio stations. I would scribble things down. You know, people calling for a request, I would just write it down. Half the time I couldn't read what I wrote. The song was there, I couldn't tell who called it in. But yeah, that's what I do. You know, My fiance, Mrs. Middlehead, who I mentioned, she's behind, my helper behind the scene, told me just do it that way, you know, just so you remember what's in your head. Because I'll be sitting in here doing something, and I'll just start rehearsing what I'm going to say. And she thinks I'm live, and I'm not. No, not yet. But yeah, I got things written down in front of me, especially about bands like W.A.S.P that had so much happen in the band. You know, um, their next one, I said before, Crimson Idol. I love this record, um, top to bottom. Great, great record. Great story. I think this is when Blackie and the band realized they can make great albums. You know, um, absolutely mind blowing. This one, like I said, they just came out at 18 with soundtracks to the Crimson Idol. We idolized is a double disc DVD. It gives the whole story behind the Crimson Idol. About all the people that are in the songs. Absolutely amazing album. I saw them. It's gotta be 07. I think it was 08. They did the Crimson Idol in its entirety. It was called Crimson Idol Tour and Other Hits. I forgot who opened for them that night. I don't remember. I really don't. I can tell you, it was one of the best concerts I ever seen. One of the best times I ever saw W.A.S.P. I saw them like 2 or 3 times. The show was amazing. They had the monitors up, you know, showing skits and parts from the album for each song. I think this brought out more from Blackie, in my opinion, both musically and emotionally, and hell, even mentally. If you guys saw him on this tour, you know what I'm talking about. He put his whole heart into this performance that night, and it blew me away. And I mean, when Blackie writes something like this, he gets into it, and it just this album took them. I think this album put them up there again. You know, just furthering, their career. You know, great concept album, great album in general. Like I said, this is definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite concept record. Out of concept albums that are out there. An amazing recording of it. I would love for them to do, maybe an extension of this one. Right? Do another album with an extension, much like say King Diamond does with his records, an extension to the next one. I think it would be great. But definitely, any W.A.S.P fans, I'm sure you guys know Crimson Idol. Check this record out. I love this one, and get the 2018 reissue of it, re-idolized, double disc, live plus DVD. It's narrated by Blackie. I watched this. I can't tell you how many times I watched this since I got this when it first came out in 18. There'll be times where I just want to, sit back and just watch it. Like one of the best concepts, period. And I know bands that have done them before, but definitely one of the best, if not the best. Alright. Their next one, that came out in '95, still not black enough. This one made it, fans go, how can you go from Crimson Idol to this? I think this was trying to be an add-on to Crimson. Um, it's not a real bad album. Uh, it's a good metal album. Uh, again, you could see them. You can see W.A.S.P starting to get away from all that. Their early stuff, and trying to put out like more story albums. Um, they did a cover of "Somebody to Love" on this record by I might be wrong on this. Jefferson Airplane, I believe it was. I'm not. I'm trying to remember it. Man, I know I got it wrong. Um, but yeah, um, it wasn't a real bad one. Um, I think "Rock and Roll to Death" is probably one of my favorite tracks off this record. Um, they did a ballad called "Breathe" on here, which not a bad ballad, another power ballad, another strong power ballad, and uh, Blackie became like I think the master of doing power ballads. Um, but by this time, especially with the couple that are on um, Crimson Idol. Um, yeah, but Jefferson Starship. Thank you. It just came to my head. Um, Somebody to Love. I think it's Jefferson Starship. No, it's not either. You, if you guys know what I'm talking about, you know the band. It just slipped my mind. I don't know why. Um, yeah, just slipped. But Scared to Death, you know, is really another good track. Like I said, I think this was one of those albums where they were in the middle again. You know, they were that mid '90s, late '90s, almost 2000s genre, era. You know, where I know a lot of people didn't think that W.A.S.P was gonna be around as long as they were. You know, um, like I said, not a real bad album. Again, it has that sticker, Parental Advisory. You know, explicit lyrics. There, there, lyrics on here weren't that bad. That I can remember. Uh, Something off innuendos, but nothing too drastic in my opinion. I remember when I saw the cover, it has the crow on it. And I love crows. And I was like, okay, let's see where this is going. You know, and I think they were going through some stuff personally on this record, and it spilled over to here. But like I said, it's really not a bad album. Still not black enough. Came out in '95. Uh, yeah, if you want, if you guys don't have this, or if you guys do have it, know what I'm talking about. Drop your comments in the link or in the comment box. Let me know. And also, if you remember who did why it's on, it just slipped my mind. Um, Somebody to Love. My mind just went completely blank. So again, I know I did it yesterday. I'll do it again today. Um, Somebody to Love. My fiance is trying to tell me why I'm up here. Okay, by Queen. Why did I get Jefferson Airplane for her? Wow. Anyways, by Queen. That just blew my mind and slipped my mind all at the same time. Yeah. Don't ask, guys. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But yeah. It's not a real bad one. It's different from them. as I started to notice them go a little bit different with albums. Um, their next one, uh, I think, is their most angry album, um, dark album, heavy album. Um, they they got more. They went back a little bit um, to how they started off. That shock value that they tried and do, when they first came about. Um, like almost like a experimental type. I know a lot of people were, when this record dropped, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, they're trying to be, they're trying to compete with Manson." But when he came out, um, I saw some of it in this record, um, but I still say they were not trying to compete with Manson or trying to be, attract from that genre. Um, Not by any stretch, because I personally think Blackie could just be his own demons. You know, I think Blackie can go to that dark part of him, which he did on KFD, and yes, for good reason. They have a sticker on it. This one, it blew me away when it came out. Um, it, I think it scared a lot of people. Believe it or not, just the lyrics on this album were dark, uh, angry, harsh. Um, I think a lot of what Blackie was going through and Chris Holmes was going through at that time, between Still Not Black Enough and this record, rolled over into this release. And I personally love this album. I think because it's heavier, grittier, and for whoever who's into that real harsh stuff, this is the one, down by them. They experimented a lot with this record. Some of the lyrics of this on this record, song titles, I think this record brought a lot of people back to them, and also turned people away from them. Like some of the older crowd, the ones that were like me that were into them for a while. I didn't mind it too much, Like I said, I think it's one of their best albums. It's hard, it's heavy, it's basically an album that said that they don't care. They're gonna do what they want to do. You know, um, and they put it out there. Blackie's always one of the ones that always wore his heart and his emotions in the forefront on his sleeve. And if he didn't like something, Blackie was gonna tell you. Blackie didn't care. Blackie still doesn't care. That's what I love about Blackie. He didn't care what people said. He just went out there and did what he wanted to do. Like I said, it's strong, harsh album, deep album, dark album. Title track, KFD, Take the Addiction. My favorite track off this record, My Tortured Eyes. Great album, heavy song, very, very heavy song, heavy lyrics to it. It's basically being tortured, going through the same thing over and over again with somebody, and them just beating on you, hitting on you, demoralizing you, whether it's mentally or physical, Kill Your Pretty Face is self-explanatory. Breakup song, in my opinion. Ending a relationship, you know, on very bad terms, things like that. Uh, Wicked Love, I love that song. Just the complex of it. Blackie's vocals in that song are amazing. I think. I think Chris played some of his best music on this record. Um, yeah, you know, a lot of people say when this came out, why don't they just go back to their old ways? You know, it's just the different turning of them. Again, when they try to compete with, you know, all the shock that was coming out, you know, the shock rock that was coming out then. You know, you had Alice Cooper still popping off things. You know, then you had Manson doing his thing, pissing people off. Um, Manson did tour. I think Manson and W.A.S.P did tour together a couple times back then. They were on festivals, I believe, back then. Um, like I said, when I saw them do this record, when I saw them on this tour with Motorhead, you know, it was a total different Blackie than, you know, years prior. Hell, when I saw him on the Crimson Isle tour, it was, to me, that was Blackie on that tour, the Crimson Isle tour. But this tour for them, when I saw them with Motorhead on this tour, you know, you saw a side of Blackie, a pissed off, angry, vigilant side. You know, that side of Blackie where he really didn't give a goddamn about anything. You know, so, but yeah, oh, it's definitely one of those albums that people need to like relook at. You know, again, uh, I still say I like this album a lot. You know, the grittiness, the heaviness, the hard, and just the heart of it. You know, the emotional part of it. Um, um, After that record, they went to a little bit of an identity crisis, I like to call it. They had they released in '99 Eldorado, um, which it didn't do too great um, when it came out. Uh, Black even said it's not one of his favorite albums, you know, he's ever done. Some of the song titles just, you know, it's like they were pushed. Like, I think they rushed this album. I think they rushed the songwriting on this album. Ooh, excuse me. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple good tracks. I can't tell you how many times I've re-listened to this album since '99, since it came out. Um, you know, some of the songs just, like I said, pushed. I think they rushed into it. Uh, Damnation Angels, pretty good song of this record. If you know this record, you know what I'm talking about. Can't Die Tonight, Saturday Night Cockfight, um, Cocaine Cowboys, which is like one of their, you know, songs that they continuously play. Uh, and then they had some songs that I didn't understand why, you know, why them. I to this day I'm like, you know, wonder what was going through their, you know, with them. Uh, of course, they had the title track Eldorado, which is a pretty good song, not too bad. Uh, Don't Cry, Just Suck. You know, it's like that's what you know. It's like that you would think of seeing on their early stuff. Dirty Balls, you know. It's one of those songs, you know, uh, diseases and shit like that. But there's a few songs that you would think you would see on their earlier stuff, you know. But yeah, it's just one of those albums that, um, for W.A.S.P in general, is just that just came off of KFD, you know. a lot of people say, well, this could be, an aftermath of that, which, okay, I can see that, but still, it's like you just came off one of your darkest, angriest, hateful, you know, f off albums, period, and you come out with El Dorado. It's not a bad record, like I said, but there's two good tracks. It's just, I think they were at that point, in '99 where, you know, they didn't know, going forward. Because, like I said, '82 to '99, a lot of different things, metal wise, were happening. You had a lot of different genres starting to pop up. You had the whole shock rock genre with Manson and Mudvayne and whoever else. You had Cooper coming back doing things. Then you had the whole new metal, thing starting. The Limp Biscuits. God, I hate them. You had the Korn. You had Linkin Park, dropping stuff then too. Just different bands that were up and coming. And you had W.A.S.P. That was at that time around for 17 years, roughly. And I think a lot of people thought that was them tailing off. I think that's when Chris Holmes started to get away from them a little bit. Having him, I think if he would have fought, if he would have got help for his demons, back then, who knows? Like I said, I think Chris could have been a phenomenal guitar player. I mean, he was great. I still like him, but I think, a lot of things he couldn't handle, and when you turn to, gallons and gallons of vodka, it makes things worse. I think that drew a wedge between him and Blackie. I mean, there's different sides to every story. Don't get me wrong, but I know him and Chris have had bad blood over the past few years, dating back mid 2007, I think it was. Their next album came out 01. I'm sorry, yeah, 01. Like I said, I got these written down. I got Scribble Scrabble, literally right in front of me. I'm sorry, 02. I'm sorry, my bad. I apologize. One of my favorite records. This album means a lot to me. This happened this was released right after 9/11 hit. They were playing, Blackie Lawless and W.A.S.P. were playing here in the city. It's one of the shows I didn't get to. They were playing here, I think, 4 months before 9/11. As they're leaving the city, they're going across the GW, I think it was, and you could see the Twin Towers, and he said, if you would have told me 4 months ago that those towers were not going to be here when we came back, I would have laughed at you and said, what are you, crazy? Well, this album hits on it. If you guys have this record, you know what I'm talking about. One of my favorite, Dying for the World. Blackie's vocals on this album are great. Hollow Ground. You notice there's two versions of this song on here. He did one music and one acoustic. That song is about which was at that time Ground Zero. It's always been called Hollow Ground. It's been called, if you're from New York and from the area, you know what I'm talking about. It's sacred ground. Bottom line. The song that he did on this, he puts his whole heart into it. I saw them on this tour in '02, and he nailed this song to the point where you had tears in the crowd at that show, and I mean little tears. That's one thing with Blackie, with ballads, especially things that are, meaningful. And at that time, 9/11 happened, and everybody was getting together. You know, you had a lot of metal bands getting together, doing special things. You had, like I mentioned before, you had Overkill, Anthrax, number of bands, Sick of It All, doing a benefit show in Manhattan after that happened. If I remember correctly, I saw Ozzy and White Zombie in 2001. They changed the name of that tour. I forgot what they changed it to, what the name of that tour was. If anybody remembers, comment for me in the comment box if you remember that tour. It was Ozzy, White Zombie, and I don't remember the third band. I want to say Mudvayne, but I don't think it was. I wasn't a real big Mudvayne fan. I'm still not. But yeah, bands were changing tour names because they didn't want to have a negative, message per se in any words. Which I saluted a lot of bands for doing that. A lot of bands, said about 9/11 at their shows. For me, it's it still hits. Anybody that lives in the tri-state area can tell you, especially here in New York, it hits hard each year. But yeah, this album's amazing. It has a lot to do with 9/11, things that happened, the victims. Like I said, Blackie just puts his heart and soul into these songs, especially Hollow Ground. Stone Cold Killer's a great track on this. Trail of Tears is another one. Hell for Eternity, My Wicked Heart. There's so many good tracks on this record alone. But definitely check this album out. Dying for the World, W.A.S.P. This came out 02. It's came out on Sanctuary Records. That's I gotta say about W.A.S.P. That's one thing about W.A.S.P. and Blackie. They write about things current. Back in the '80s, it was about Wall Street, about people stealing money. A lot of different things. KFD. Personal things, personal life. Things that people are going through. The next two came out in '04. They did I think one came out in May, one came out in like September, I believe, or October. Neon God Part 1, The Rise. And then a couple months later, Neon God Part 2, The Demise. Great concept on both albums. Again, this is when I think W.A.S.P. started to do more storylines with their albums. These two are not bad albums by any stretch. I think each song on here has its own meaning. You had one of them you had 14, the other one you had 9. So it's they go into one another. This also marked the end of Chris Holmes. want to say this is when um, uh, Duda came in with Doug Blake. I have a like I said, I have notes, because so much went on with them. I think this is when Duda came in with Doug Blake on these records. Um, Again, two great concept albums. A lot of people didn't like them. Again, it gets away from that, normal W.A.S.P. But, for W.A.S.P. to do what they did with, like, say, Still Not Black Enough, and then KFD, and then Dying for the World, it's, I like how they changed it up, and got back to them, you know. That's why W.A.S.P. has always been one of my favorites. Blackie writes what he wants. If he doesn't like something, next album he comes back and he changes that, Why Am I Nothing, one of those mid album ballads. Asylum number 9. This is off of part 1, The Rise. Me and the Devil, The Running Man, and then part 2 of it, like I said, part 1 came out like May. Part 2 came out, I think, in like September or October of both in '04. You had Resurrector, Clockwork Mary, Come Back to Black. That's one of my favorite tracks off that album, off these two combined. And then '04, they took their time after that. I know there was a lot of changes going on in the band. Um, they had they had a lot of touring guitarists with them, touring drummers. At one point it was just Blackie. I think Mike Duda were like the only two permanent at that time. And then '07, another one of my favorite by them, Dominator. Great album. Great metal album. A little harder, a little heavier. A lot more melodic on this record. This caught a lot of attention from a lot of fans that loved it. I remember when I first heard it was the Burning Man. I was like, okay, I like it. It's more up tempo, more up, beat with them. Like I said, a lot heavier, a lot faster, a lot more of like the old school W.A.S.P. feel. I think Blackie's vocals on this album are absolutely some of the best, he's done in a long, long time. That's Dominator. Came out '07. A lot of people say if they stay like that the rest of their career, they're perfect. And I agree with a lot of people when they say that. I do like this record a lot. This is one of the records that I go to a lot. If I want to pop in a W.A.S.P, I'll throw in either that or the first one. But yeah, I think this record, sealed them. As still being around, still fighting through everybody's thing. We're not going nowhere, and for them to be playing right now, 2024 still, over in Europe, over in Stockholm, Sweden, over in Oslo, Norway, it says a lot for W.A.S.P. It says a lot for Blackie, them persevering, just doing their things, and a lot of people say Blackie can be arrogant, Blackie can be an asshole, which, you find me a musician that, isn't, you find a musician that's not you know, that doesn't have good and bad days. You know, it's very few and far in between. You know, but that's Blackie. Um, do what I love to see. You know, like I said, them do an expansion of Crimson Idol. Yes. What I'd love for them to do, maybe you know, an album, say like their debut. You know, or Dominator, even Most Seven, or you know, um, The Last Command. So yeah, they're. I'm trying to hold them up. They're almost falling over here on me. Um, or even say do a part two of Hellish Children. You know, I think everybody has their top W.A.S.P albums. Um, I know I do. Um, I might put it in the description. I might just add on to it. You know, I might surprise people and shock people. You know, my my top, you know, say my top 10 W.A.S.P albums. You know, which I could probably just show them right now. You know, uh, after Dominator, uh, th- th- this one again, uh, Long Way to Go, Take Me Up, The Burning Man, Heaven's Hung in Black. Again, they did two versions of this. Um, they did a harder version, and then they did like a scaled back version of Heaven's Hung in Black. Um, again, Blackie, I think Blackie's the ultimate person that does these power metal ballads. You know, strong, hard hitting ballads. With Blackie, he puts his it's all raw emotion for him. He puts everything he has into that ballad. You know, and that's Blackie. I think it's absolutely great. Uh, Deal with the Devil. You know, another one. 2015 release, Golgotha. I don't think it's a bad release. Um, it's one of the last ones that they did next to the reissue of Crimson Idol. But it's really not a bad record. Uh, I know I'm missing two um, that I'm working on getting, um, and I'll be doing those later. Babylon and Unholy Terror. Um, I have those albums off my iTunes. Like I said, they're not bad records. Those two. Um, I think it was just W.A.S.P being W.A.S.P. Trying to get back. You know, this one, Golgotha. I think it's a very good album. Uh, they didn't rush it. I think the songwriting in this is okay. It's pretty good. Songs are there. Musically, they're really good. I think. Um, some of that stick out to me. Slaves to the New World, Eyes of a Maker, Golgotha, the title track, Shotgun, and then he has that heavy, ballad with the song "Miss You." Um, it's just W.A.S.P. You know, they've come out with numerous best ofs, live albums, the Double Live Assassin album that they put out. Great live album. If you don't have it, pick that one up. Have it over there somewhere. Um, like I said, I've seen W.A.S.P. three or four times now. Yeah, about three or four. And one show was W.A.S.P and W.A.S.P. The next show was KFD when it was that Dark album. Then you see him again, and after 9/11 happened in 2002, it's totally different, you know. And I just think it's the different, you know, mind frames, different eras of W.A.S.P. You know, that Blackie was trying to, you know, perfect. You know, he always said he he doesn't mind doing, you know, trying things. If it doesn't work, get rid of it. If it does, stay with it. And I think after the KFD album, I think they found that steadiness. That's, you know, always been W.A.S.P. You know, um, what I might do just to throw them up there. Um, just a few. I would say a few of my personal top favorites by them. Um, you know, the band's been around for a while. You know, and it's just W.A.S.P. being W.A.S.P. You know, they've been one of my favorites. You know, since '83. You know, as I think they've been a lot of people's favorites for a long time. I mean, times that I saw them, they're sold out. Videos I see them on here, they're playing in front of, you know, 80,000 people. You know, and rocking. You know, in Norway, Sweden, all over the country. You know, it's great seeing the older bands, you know, that started all this, still getting that recognition, still, you know, out there, and the fans, you know, going to them in droves. I think it's awesome. I think it's great, you know. But what I'm gonna do is just real quick. Just I'm gonna throw some of my favorites up. You know, no real order at all. Um, Definitely Hellish Children. Self-titled first one, W.A.S.P. The one that got me into them. Golgotha. Yep. Like I said, not a bad album. It's it's up there. Dying for the World. You got it's very hard hitting, off from the sleeve, emotional, you know, album. Like I said, Blackie knows how to make those albums stick. The Last Command. Love this album. Like I said, not even close to a very bad track on this album at all. KFD. Um, Very emotional record. Um, Deep record. Dirty record. Uh, just very trying to find that word. Very personable record, you know. Um, Dominator. I love this record. One of their best recordings, I mean, ever. Then, I think my top two. I know it's the same record, but to me they're different. Crimson Idol from '92. Great record, hands down. Concept top to bottom, absolutely amazing story, you know, album. Period. And then Re-Idolized, The Idol, 2018, double disc with DVD. The film is absolutely amazing, narrated by Blackie. Um, and yes, it's basically Blackie as the character. Um, you know, there's been bands that can put out monumental albums, you know, that will last a lifetime of them. You know, W.A.S.P is one of them. Like I said with Blackie, once you hear him, his vocals, you know it's him. You know, as with a lot of bands the same way. Once you hear that note, once you hear a guitar solo, you know it's them. You know, it's like hearing "Run to the Hills" and knowing it's Maiden. Hearing "Fear of the Dark" and knowing it's them. Hearing "Rain Blood" and knowing it's Slayer. You know, hearing Chuck Billy singing and knowing it's him, knowing it's Testament. Um, it's just again, I like seeing the bands from the '80s that started this whole thing. You know, well, I should say that started having the branches coming off the metal tree, as I call it. You know, I tell everybody, metal's like a tree that just starts branching and starts growing. You know, that Sabbath started, eons ago. You know, and it's still, there's branches coming off every day of it. You know, I always say plant your seed, it'll grow, and metal has been one of those things that has grown, and then some for over 60 some odd years now, 50 some odd years now. But yeah, W.A.S.P is, you got the iconic Live in the Raw that started it all, with the PMRC, Animal F Like a Beast EP, man, it's been out for God, how many years now? And they sold over, I think it was like, last thing I saw or read about something was sold just over 13 million records or something like that. Incidentally, their first and second albums were solidified as gold back in '90, I believe it was. The first album and their second album, Last Command. I think other albums should be up there with that by them. Dominator being one, Dying for the World being the other. Crimson Idol. I'm gonna keep talking about the album until I'm blue in the face. I love that record. I love the concept album of it. Everything about it was just incredible. And their ongoing awards that they had with the PMRC back in the day, the Parents Music Resource Center, and I still can't get over that filthy 15 list of some of those bands. But yeah, I want to say thank everybody for joining in, for watching this and joining me. If you liked this, and I hope you did, smash that like button. Feel free to leave comments on it. Let me know what you think about it. Your favorite W.A.S.P albums, your favorite W.A.S.P moments, things like that. When you first got into W.A.S.P. I will back. I plan to do a couple more of this. I'm working on a few things. It was just this one was brewing in my head for a little bit. I'm also getting the final things for that, where I'm going to be doing a couple lives at a couple expos that are coming up. Vinyl and CD and tape expos that are coming to the areas between now and like December, especially like right before Christmas. There's like 2 or 3 of them. But yeah, I appreciate everybody. Do me a favor, if you like this, again, please keep those horns going. Keep waving that flag. Stay metal, stay heavy, stay brutal. Smash that like button for me. Subscribe. Share my channel out. I will deeply, deeply appreciate it. You can follow me on here. You can also follow me on Instagram under the same name. But again, I appreciate you. Take care of yourselves and each other. And from the Bulldog, Mr. Metalhead Warrior NY, as I always say, keep that flag going. if you're gonna do something, make it count. Bulldog says, "Long live metal, I'm out."